The following program may contain violence and scenes disturbing to some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
Authorities are investigating at least 5 bishops in what has been called a major cover-up of decades of child abuse.
In our criminal justice system in Canada, we're just clearing the street-level offenders, the priests. We're not going higher.
I ran to the bathroom and locked myself in. I said to myself, my gosh, what's happening?
He was complicit. He was an accomplice.
This is a criminal enterprise.
Why is it that it's the victims who have to hold the church accountable? Why is it up to them?
I wish to inform you of the circumstances regarding the multiple charges of sexual assault over a period of 20 years. I was a priest in many parishes of the diocese of Chicoutimi. My victims were female minors.
In 2015, an aging priest, Paul-André Harvey, is made to pay for his crimes.
A priest from the Chicoutimi diocese has been sentenced to 6 years in prison for indecent assault and gross indecency.
He pleads guilty to 39 charges. The average age of his victims, all girls aged between 8 to 10 years old. Behind bars, Harvey does something extraordinary. He summons the prison lawyer. He wants to make a detailed confession.
Pour lui, c'était comme faire son acte de contrition, je sais pas là.
Father Harvey claimed his superiors not only knew of his serial child abuse, but they covered up his crimes.
Il dit, tout le monde le savait, ben il n'y aurait jamais eu toutes ces victimes-là, si on m'avait stoppé.
But if the higher-ups knew, as he claims, why wasn't anyone else charged in his case? And more than that, why is it we can't find one case anywhere in Canada where a church superior has been charged in connection to crimes committed by abusive priests?
There just isn't a culture in our criminal justice system in Canada to look that one level up. You know, we've got it when it comes to drug dealers. We're not just clearing the street level, we're going higher. But we don't get it when it comes to the sex offenders. We're just clearing the street level offenders, the priests. We're not going higher.
I was in a working class community during a time when priests were warmly welcomed wherever they went. I felt like a star among children, especially the girls.
50 years ago, Quebec was one of the most religiously observant societies in the Western world. From birth to death, marriage, the important elements of your life all go through the church. And the priest is like a feudal lord walking among the peasants.
Bruce Johnston is leading a class action lawsuit on behalf of more than 100 women who say they're victims of Father Harvey. Before Harvey died in prison in 2018, he handed his sworn confession to Johnston to bolster his case against the diocese.
Why was it important for him, and why is it important in general, to say that the bishops knew, the superiors knew? Why is it important to establish that and get that on the record?
Because the bishops are really the embodiment of the authority of the church, and it's the authority of the church which determines how these situations will be dealt with. And so when you have an institution which is organizing a cover-up, it's very important that that be known.
And you see this as a cover-up?
Absolutely.
Tucked away in rural Quebec, Chicoutimi was an ideal place for a young priest to follow his calling. But less than a year into his posting, Paul-André Harvey knew he had a problem.
My bishop called me to his office after a complaint had been filed. I told him about my problems and admitted to him my need to get help. He only recommended that I be more careful around children and to pray more.
The bishop was Marius Paré, and according to Harvey's confession, Paré's solution to his problem? Quietly move Father Harvey to a new parish.
Il a commencé à venir chez nous, là, à nous visiter. Il a fait ami avec nous autres. Il était jeune, elle n'avait pas plus que 4 ans, je pense. Puis je l'invitais à souper, puis il apprenait sur ses genoux, puis il la berçait.
Back in 1965, Suzanne Tremblay was 7 years old when she says Father Harvey asked her to meet him alone at their church.
C'est moi, ma communion, là.
Today, one look at that little girl brings her back to a bad place in her life.
C'était, tu sais, je les ai gardées les photos parce que je me disais un jour je vais en avoir besoin. Là, il y avait des coussins par terre, puis je me suis retrouvée sur les coussins, puis et je ne sais plus là, comment ce qui s'est arrivé, puis il s'est retrouvé par-dessus moi. J'ai regardé la croix, puis j'ai dit, si c'est vrai que tu existes, hein, ben aujourd'hui, je veux que tu viennes me chercher, je veux mourir. Je meurs, j'étais en train de mourir parce que j'ai tout fait.
When Suzanne told her parents her story, she says she was summoned to meet Bishop Paré in his office.
Il m'a nommé par mon nom, puis il dit, mets-toi à genoux, Marius Paré. Mais j'ai fait non. Fait que là, finalement, je me suis mis à genoux. Et c'est là qu'il a commencé à parler puis dire pourquoi que tu racontes ces mensonges-là. Là, tu es ici parce qu'il faut que tu arrêtes de raconter ces mensonges-là.
Suzanne's mother then demanded her own meeting with the diocese.
Il n'a pas parlé un mot. Il a sorti un grand cahier noir avec un couvert dur, je me rappelle encore. Puis il l'a ouvert, puis il écrivait tout ce que c'est qu'on disait. Puis il n'a pas eu l'air surpris, pas du tout. Moi, je pense que ça ne devait pas être la première fois qu'il en entendait parler.
Not long after the complaints, Father Harvey was moved yet again to a new parish.
It's that silent shuffle, as I call it, the moving the priest a short distance to another parish.
Rob Talek has brought more than 400 cases against the Catholic Church. He's nicknamed Canada's priest hunter.
It's almost like they taught it at bishop school. You know, the MO seems to be the complaint comes in either directly from the victim or usually their parents. The bishop or a senior ranking official speaks to the family, says, trust us, we'll take care of it.
Some went to the bishop, and we know from the records today that some went to the police. But the authority of the church at the time extended even to the police, because the police felt that if a priest was involved, it's not a matter for the police, it's a matter for the bishop.
According to Harvey's confession, between 1965 and 1981, he was questioned by 4 different police departments in the region, all acting on complaints from parents.
The police didn't charge me. They simply told me not to reoffend. For all those years, I benefited from their generosity.
Years later, the diocese would state it knew nothing about any problems with their priest. However, records show between 1963 and 2002, Father Harvey was moved to a new parish 12 times, all approved by the bishop of the day.
Whenever he would receive another complaint, he would reassign me to another parish, thinking that it would resolve my emotional problems. It was to no avail. After a few days, I would reoffend.
The church maintained the position that they knew nothing, that there were no written records whatsoever. Do you believe that to be true?
I'm certain that's not true. So under canon law, every diocese must have secret archives, and only the bishop has the keys to the secret archives. We got to examine one of the bishops who was in authority while Father Harvey was making victims.
This is Bishop Couture.
Yes.
In 1979, Jean-Guy Couture was brought in as the new bishop of Chicoutimi. He was Father Harvey's boss for the next 23 years. In 2017, as part of his class action suit against the Chicoutimi diocese, Johnston cross-examined Couture, who had since retired.
He confirmed there were indeed secret archives.
Here's what he said. So we asked him, there are secret archives, are there not? And he says, yes, there are. I asked him, so what is in them? And he said, I don't know, I never looked.
Do you believe him?
No, I don't. No, I'm quite certain that's not true.
What do you believe is in those secret archives in relation to the case of Father Harvey?
Well, if there were any written communications by parents, any written communications by the police, any reports about any investigations they would have held, they would be in the secret archives.
And yet after a police investigation, we know no charges were laid against any church officials in connection to Father Harvey's crimes.
My practice is an indictment of the failure of the criminal justice system. I mean, we're doing the heavy lifting along with our clients at their cost to what the state should otherwise be doing.
Rob Talek says because the Crown hasn't laid any criminal charges, he goes to civil court to fight for the victims.
The people of this province and the people of this particular diocese wants to know what went on, wants to know how deep the rot was or is.
He's won $50 million in settlements, holding the church accountable for their abusive priests.
They facilitate the perpetrator. They magnify their effect. They're completely the opposite of what a moral institution like the church should do. So, absolutely, they're crimes.
It's alleged Monsignor William Lynn buried complaint after complaint of sexually abusive priests. Philadelphia grand jury investigations unearthed a pattern of cover-up at the highest reaches of the archdiocese.
This is a criminal enterprise, so I wanted to uncover it.
We did find one case where someone took aim at the hierarchy of the church.
You called it a cover-up, and
Yep.
the church called it unfair.
Yeah.
But that didn't dissuade you.
No, nothing dissuaded me. These guys are no good. These are bad guys.
Lynn Abraham was Philadelphia's scrappy district attorney for 19 years.
I'm a very strong individual, and things bother me. My conscience, people have likened my conscience to a true North Pole star. It just doesn't move. And when things bother me, I have to find out why they bother me.
The sex abuse scandal that's rocked the Catholic Church took a new turn today.
What was bothering Abraham were reports of widespread clergy abuse that were coming out of Boston.
Bernard Cardinal Law has resigned.
It's alleged hundreds of children were sexually abused by priests while Law either looked the other way or shuffled pedophile priests from one unsuspecting church to another.
I said to myself, well, if it happened in Boston, can Philadelphia, with its very large and very strong archdiocese and Catholic population, how could we have been missed?
No priest guilty of even one act of sexual abuse of a minor will function in any ecclesial ministry or any capacity in our diocese.
The church hierarchy in Philadelphia tried to get out in front of any scandal, revealing its secret archives identified 35 abusive priests in the archdiocese.
I said, look, we're going to do a grand jury investigation of abuse in the church, and we can do it two ways. The best thing for the church to do is say, here are all our secret archives. We only have 35 cases. That's all we have. Here are all of our records. Go through them, and that'll be an end to it. Or you can resist us, and we'll just take it as it goes. So they said, well, we're not going to give it to you.
When we come back, the DA goes after the Cardinal.
We were the first ever to haul the Cardinal in front of a grand jury.
While in Canada, victims are left to fight the church power on their own.
The church knew about it. They let other children being abused. No words for that. I have no words for that.
The following program may contain violence and scenes disturbing to some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
Channel 10 continues its special coverage of the elevation of Anthony Bevilaqua to Cardinal of Philadelphia.
It was a proud moment for Philadelphia's Catholic community, more than 1 million strong.
The moment when Philadelphia's Archbishop became Anthony Cardinal Bevilaqua, Prince of the Church.
How powerful is the Catholic Church in this town?
We've always had very powerful, very strong leaders. We had Cardinal Bevilaqua, who was outgoing, smart as a whip. These leaders, what their word was law.
Lynn Abraham's grand jury investigation spanning 5 years would eventually reveal 125 cases of abusive priests.
We saw records signed by the Cardinal himself, transferring this priest, and we saw records about allegations of priest sex abuse. It was all in their records. They had great archives. Now, the fact that they lied to us about the existence of these archives, even though we had court-ordered subpoenas, and they swore they had turned over everything. I mean, they lie from the minute you can say hello.
Abraham wanted to go after the leadership of the church, or as she saw them, their enablers.
Our investigation named names for the first time ever and accused Cardinal Bevilaqua, whom we brought in under subpoena to testify in front of the grand jury. First time that has ever happened, I think, in the country.
I know at the time you had an interest in indicting Cardinal Bevilaqua.
Certainly did.
Why?
Because he was guilty of engaging in the crimes of covering up child abuse. He knew about it and covered it up. He was complicit. He was an accomplice.
Cardinal Bevilaqua died before he faced any criminal charges.
So here's what we know. In a report released just moments ago, the late Cardinal Anthony Bevilaqua is named as an abuser.
Years after his death, victims came forward to allege he didn't just cover up abusers, he was an abuser. In Quebec, there was no crusader questioning why the diocese kept shuffling pedophile priest Paul-André Harvey from church to church.
This is me, and it was in the same time. Yeah, in 5th grade. I was always at the church every Sunday with him because I was helping him with the Mass. So probably he thought I was a good victim for him, I don't know.
In 1978, Hélène Ash remembers Father Harvey would come to her home every week to have coffee with her parents. He had been transferred to her town, his 3rd parish in 2 years.
Most of the sexual assaults took place in the victims' homes. When I knew the parents would be out, I would show up unexpectedly.
So we were all alone. And he asked me, do you want to sit on my lap? Okay, I'm 10, so he's a good guy, and we know him. So I went on his lap, and then, okay, he hugged me. And I felt uncomfortable, but still. But then I felt his mouth going through my neck. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I felt his hands going down. I said to myself, my gosh, what's happening? It was eternal for me. And then the phone rang. It was my mom. So I took the phone. I was, oh gosh. And my mom said, are you okay? I said, no, Mom, come back. It's not okay. And as soon as I hung up the phone, I ran to the bathroom and locked myself in. My mom told me that when she and my father came back, he wasn't there.
As parish priest, Father Harvey was also the priest at Hélène's school.
So the next morning, I went to the principal of my school and told her everything. And then the first thing I knew, he was not working there anymore.
There was never any follow-up to the complaints. That's a big reason why there were so many deviant acts for so long. I think some judicial reprimands would have put a stop to my sexual abuse.
We contacted the Chicoutimi diocese for an interview about Father Harvey, but they declined. In a statement, the diocese writes, "We have worked together with the Saguenay police in their criminal investigation. Nothing was hidden or withheld. Everything the diocese found in its files was handed over to investigators."
I think that the church still benefits from a level of deference from all types of civil authorities. Even today, to call to account a bishop in the criminal courts requires a slight paradigm shift among the people who have the authority to take those proceedings.
In Quebec alone, our colleagues at the program Enquête have compiled a list of 25 class action suits involving some 200 abusive clergy members and 3,000 alleged victims, but not one charge against anyone in the church hierarchy. Quebec's Justice Minister declined an interview to explain why her department has never pressed charges against church superiors. And she has refused calls for a public inquiry into abusive priests.
Personne ne met en doute qu'il y a eu des prêtres pédophiles. Personne ne met en doute présentement la parole de ces gens-là qui s'expriment. Donc la situation, elle est connue. Moi, je préfère, pour l'instant, travailler sur des situations pour aider justement ces gens-là, les aider à dénoncer, les accompagner.
Why is it that it's the victims who have to go out to hold the church, in this case the diocese, accountable? Why is it up to them?
Well, perhaps it shouldn't be. I think the lack of accountability detracts from people's confidence in the rule of law, because you see people getting away with it, say, well, there is no justice, and that bothers the victims, and it bothers me.
The church knew, so they have at least a responsibility to recognize it.
What needs to be done now?
It's a big question.
Yeah.
It has to stop. We're talking about the church, but it has to stop everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Victims need to be heard and need to be believed, yeah. That's why Me Too came out, and it has to stop. If you know it, at least stop it. So that's what I'm asking to the church. Recognize it and stop it, and don't let anyone else continue to abuse.